Well, hello everybody, I'm Josie. I am a playmaker polisher, just so we're clear on where those proclivities lie. I'm the founder and the managing director of Brook Payne Associates, and we are a small consultancy based in Royal Wootton Bassett in Wiltshire. So I started the consultancy in 2000 and previously spent over 20 years in the medical devices industry, and that was obviously in the private sector, and had ended up as country manager for a global German pharmaceutical organization. So my background is very much business, which has in many ways stood us in good stead when working with our clients, and in particular with the police. I also have a background of occupational psychology, which is what I did at university. GC Index, I'm very, very new to the organisation in that I only joined you in October. There's an interesting story behind this because, all right, okay. My neighbour is Mark Blinney, who is a GCologist.
Oh, he's your neighbour?
He's a neighbour. Okay, right. He's actually moved house in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
but, and you know, but we were neighbours, and he's also a motor racing fiend, which my husband is, and that's how the connection came. He was talking to me one day in the garden, and we're both in similar sort of occupations, and he was telling me about the GC Index, and my ears pricked up because he was talking about a business tool. The language that he was talking about was something that I had actually been looking for a very long time for the work that I do with the police. Something other than psychometrics, like MBTI, like DISC, like any of the others that many of the people here use. I wanted something that had a vocabulary, that had a simplicity, but that had a real meaning about that strategic business thought process that is really required today in most industries, and you know, the private sector is no real difference in many ways to the public sector. And looked at it and thought, well, you know, I think this might be something for the police, but it's going to take a little bit of work, because police culture, to embrace something that is in there would be seen by them as quite radical. Rules, regulations, litigation, bureaucracy, breaking rules, goodness me, taking risk, throwing away traditional methods, embracing artificial intelligence. My God, this was truly scary.
You look like you've got a well documented list there, Josie.
Oh, because there's so much of it.
But
it was that I was thinking how these are the things to overcome.
Yeah.
And yet, how many times had I come across delegates on police programs who had massive talent, lots of ideas. You could just tell that, you could smell it, you could taste it. And they were completely misunderstood by their organization as being mavericks. They frightened people, they frustrated bosses. These obscure ideas that they had didn't fit with our traditional form of policing. And a little fearful also, I think, that anything that might include them would open Pandora's box, and they'll have to do something else. So what was also a shame was the delegates' disappointment. It was palpable. You could taste it. And I thought, and so when Mark told me about the GC, this was just manna from heaven, really. So on the 22nd of October last year, I enrolled for the GC accreditation program, and I met Dr. John. When I was doing the accreditation, I met Michael Horwath, Alejandro Payan, Julio Leyva from Colombia. Yeah. And it was fab, because here I was doing something on a global basis with people from different continents. I was just fascinated, and I think Dr. John would probably say I was having a pretty good time with this and thoroughly enjoying it. from my own perspective.
Yeah.
So, since that time, I've been spreading the good news of the GC Index, basically. So that's how I came into it. So policing is complex, and yet fundamentally the job hasn't changed over the decades since 1829 to present day. It is to uphold the Queen's peace, to prevent and detect crime, set against a philosophy of policing by consent. This is by consent of the people. And this concept is admired right across the world. It's an interesting one. But modern day policing is now challenging for all sorts of reasons. And current major issues like COVID-19 brought with it civil disorder. And you'll remember the disorder in London and Bristol.
Yep.
And in Bristol, when they shoved the sculpture into the river. But there's also a massive increase in cybercrime and in organisational gang-related crimes such as child slavery, drug trafficking, cyber fraud, immigration, and the ongoing effects of Brexit. And that's just to name a few.
Yeah, and you're talking, this is UK, but these are same issues faced all around the world by police force, right? I know we're talking very UK centric, but this is resonating for everyone else around the world, you know? I mean,
you're right. And that's the thing also, that UK policing is kind of, this is a global issue in many ways. And it's that networking, I think, that would be very beneficial. But in addition to all of this, there are the concerns from the general public over inequality, disproportionality of police actions. Kill the bill. Look what's happened with the events. Look what happened in Bristol with one of the police places. And then you've got George Floyd going on in the USA, Black Lives protests in Bristol, London, and then the death of Sarah Everard. All of these increasing the complexity. So the police are facing increased demands both operationally and organisationally, and they're taxed to deliver an inclusive professional police service, working alongside now with agencies, much more so. And I'm interested to hear about some of the agencies that I think somebody's going to talk about, but we're talking about
that's West Midland Employers. That's a really great case study, actually. John Franklin Hackett is the person to connect with, but we'll
because you're talking about health, social care, ambulance, fire, rescue, all that sort of things. And more often than not, it is the police that these agencies turn to because they've got more resource than they have.
Yes.
And they're looking to help the communities, really. So although crime is preventing crime is the overarching objective, when it comes to what we're talking about, the public call them, it could be Mrs. Miggins' cat up a tree. Equally, it could be something, really quite serious about somebody committing suicide and wanting to jump off a bridge. But every man and his dog calls the police. When they can't get through anywhere else, they ring 999 because they know they're going to get an answer. So the picture I'm painting is not the future. The picture I'm painting is today. It's real, it's live, it's now. And these police leaders are working tirelessly to try and address these problems. But here's where it happens. They are worried, very worried indeed, that policing is not fit for purpose for many of the strategic criteria that are hitting them right now. Identifying the police entrepreneurs of the future is essential. And that's where the GC Index comes in. If used in a way throughout an organisation, can identify those people coming in at the bottom of the organisation who potentially have the proclivities, and they can be managed, developed, and even put into the right place, because there's many different aspects to policing. So it can start right at the beginning, which would never leave a top team without a mixture of proclivities in one form or another, or the ability to dip into a superintendent, a chief superintendent, even maybe a Bobby on the beat.
Yes.
to be active in working with them. But there's something else here. We've got a flagship program called Policing Horizons. And this is a program that we started 3 years ago. It's designed to support senior police officers through the Police Assessment Centre to the senior command course, which is where the ACPO ranks come from. Now, the GC Index from this year is part of our foundation course. Yeah. So for us, what we're trying to do is to ensure that all the people who come on the course get the chance to see what the GC Index is about, and they take that back to their own police services, police forces. So I think I know what's needed here, and if I don't have a go at it, well, I'm not sure that I will have given it my best shot. So I've gone from private sector to public sector, and I love these guys and girls, or girls and guys. They are amazing people who are quite misunderstood at times. All right, yesterday, let me tell you who they're. I can't tell you who they are. No, I'm not allowed to do that. But they are a top police team. I was amazed by their abilities, and what I did was I used the gift link initially with the chief constable. He took it, he loved it. We did the feedback session, he loved it even more. Josie, he said, I want this for my team. So with that, we did the individuals, then we got the team report, and yesterday I conducted the workshop. Now, considering I haven't done one of these before, you'll have to excuse me if there's things that I have missed out. But, you know, we had 7 police chief officers there, including the Director of Finance and the Director of Learning and Organisational Development. Great big names there, but they're people, basically. And they are really proactively looking for their force to take on the challenges that I've been talking about.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to watch how it happened. We started off and I got them to all stand up and tell us about themselves, but along the lines of what's their purpose, why they're here, what were the values, where does this fit now, how do they see the future, in a creative way. I even got sung, dance, poems and all sorts of stuff yesterday. It blew my mind away. I couldn't believe what was going on. It was fantastic. They got the concept immediately about the game changer because their deputy, a lady, is a massive game changer. She didn't know why she thought in a different way until GC Index. Now she's loving it. And so are they, because they now recognize that she's not an oddball, she's not an eccentric. Yeah. Actually, she is really worthwhile. Yeah. Not only is she a game changer, but she's pragmatic as well. So she's practical.
Yeah.
What they were also wowed about was the 50% of the team profile showed they were implementers. You expect that with cops, they make things happen, they're action people. But the energy was just so much. Now, this team is really galloping along. They've got their chief constable, who is the playmaker and the only real playmaker. He's trying to hold them back, you know, moving along. We've got our strategic plan, which they have. We can do this, you can do that. They were really full of it. And I said to them, just hang on a minute, right? Just hang on a minute. What does the polisher in the room have to say, who was an assistant chief constable? And she said, well, I think this is great, but I think we need to slow down a bit because we get it. What about the rest of the organisation? Just because our energy is so high and we want to make it happen, doesn't mean to say it's going to happen unless we sit back now and just think, what's our communication plan going to be? How are we going to check for understanding? So there was a lot more that came out of it. Certainly there's a playmaker element there that they need to develop around influencing. And that's an area that, and because the other part is playing the game, which is another story in itself. And
we've got a couple of comments about that. We'll have to put them to one side. I think there's a broader police, as I say, this could be a whole day, these police conversations.
But I had an email this morning from the chief. All right, I'll end on this. And he said, Josie, we all enjoyed the day. and certainly a lot to take away from the inputs, discussions, and the GC Index material. I certainly took a lot from the day, and we will be having further discussions on how to take it forward tomorrow.